All right. Hey, everybody. Coach Stacy Lynn here. I am happy that you are out there. Want to say hi to all you new folks who have subscribed. And if you haven't yet, what are you waiting for? It's completely free to subscribe to my channel, people. You can mute the notifications. Just hit subscribe, please. Anyway. So I wanted to come in here for a few minutes, and I wanted to respond to some of the comments that I've gotten on this video that I did, and I honestly didn't expect it to get this much feedback. But I have to answer a couple of the comments because my commentary about why it's hard to make friends at church has kind of exploded in the comments about all these other topics, which wasn't the topic. So I got to tell you guys something too. So this morning I was coaching somebody, and one of the things that I was discussing with this person was how often when people fight, they don't fight fair. In fact, when I did a lot of marriage counseling, it was so fun because I would get to hear the fights and all that, and then I would get to break them up. And I even had one client that, the guy threw the pillow at the wife, and it's like, no. Conflict is not easy, people. But here's the thing: when people don't fight fair, what they do is they bring up topics from the past instead of staying on one topic. They don't stay on the one issue at hand. And so, and then they say, well, you did that and you did that. What, and they don't own things, right? They don't say, I feel hurt when you did blank, fill in the blank. Instead, they say, you're an idiot because you did blah, 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 blah. And if you think you have relationship problems, it could be because of you, not I, right? And the reality is a lot of people have relationship problems because they don't know how to take personal responsibility. They don't know how to own their own feelings. They don't know how to express things with I statements like I feel blank, as opposed to you did, you make me feel you. And I'm just telling you, I'm getting old, people. Maybe not as old as some of you, but just saying. If you're going to have a healthy relationship, you have to be able to listen, and you have to be able to respond in a healthy way, and take some ownership and state your feelings, right? So, what I've noticed though in the comments on this video is that all of a sudden there are all these comments that have nothing to do with the main topic of my video. Now, look, I also understand this is par for the course. It's the internet, right? And there are some people who just want to, you know, stir up crap, right? They just want to stir, just saying. Whereas other people are actually trying to enter into the conversation and make a difference and kind of go, yeah, this has been my experience. And I just want you to know that my main point in doing that video was not to bash the church. And some of you have kind of made that kind of your comment. It's like, well, yeah, people are blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that was not the point of my video. The point of that video was to explain why when you leave church, most people never hear from anybody in that church. And it was also to explain what I came to see and realize that it's hard to make friends in church because of how the church is set up. It's set up as a community center, basically, a social club, if you will, to go in and do a group activity with people. I mean, that's the long and short of it. My hair, my head itches. Anyway, so I want to look at some of the comments and respond to some of those because I am a feedback person, and I love to give feedback, and I just want to share some of this. So here is my thing. This has been up for 5 days and it has over 3,600 views so far, which is amazing to me. I didn't expect it to get that many. But here's a comment That has nothing to do with really what I said in the video. And that comment is some church people gossip a lot, but they say they're just helping. To which my response is that has nothing to do with making friends in church. And all it does is attack people who go to church. And the reality is that people everywhere gossip. It's not just so-called church people that gossip. So that's kind of an unhealthy, that comment isn't real helpful. Um, Now this comment, I met one of them on a street corner giving out invites for the church day, food, and books. I said, when you get there, nobody wants to know, as I mean, what's your name? Nothing is said, would love to study Book of Revelation with other like-minded people. Church has truly changed. Okay, well, that was awkwardly written, but I think I understand what they're talking about. I think what they're trying to say is that, they got invited to the church, but once they got to the church, nobody was interested in connecting and she wants to study the Book of Revelation. Okay, well, then do what I did. Start your own study and then invite people to it. So let's see what else we got here. So Stacy Lynn, you're so much on the money. Yes, they love bomb you to check you out. Actually, they judge if they're going to get involved with you by what you're wearing, what car you drive, your hairstyle. Okay, I don't know about that. I don't know that I would go that far, but maybe. I know that I'm not rich. I drive a 20-year-old car, people. So if you drive an old beat up little car, wear poor clothing and shoes, you're a little shy, forget about making friends at church. Maybe one good soul may take an interest in you. And most often she's as poor as you are. Well, probably. I can tell you in my neighborhood, I am probably one of the poorest people. Um, in the world anyway. I am rich in spirit, people. I have treasures in heaven. Uh, so D6861, thanks for that comment. Let's see here. This one says, in the church that I'm going now, they already have their little groups and newcomers are not welcome. I'm not, see, and I think that right there, that comment, this comment here, I think this comment, I think a lot of people feel that way. And I think that goes to, I'll just come back here for a minute. I think that that goes to the structure in the church, right? I think a lot, and my husband and I, we've discovered this over the years. I think part of the struggle with the church is that they want to grow it, they want to get it big, right? And they do that by outreach and blah, blah. Right. Perfect one, perfect two big outreaches, right? Halloween, which is so biblical, isn't it? Anyway, but Halloween, they do a trunk or treat or whatever. And then Christmas, maybe Easter. Okay. But the thing is okay, we're gonna get everybody to come, and then what? And what I find interesting is it's not to develop relationships with people, it's to get people to sit in a chair and listen to the pastor who's supposed to be delivering God's word, right? Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. Um, the thing is the discipleship doesn't happen. Now, there were a couple people who made comments about Sunday school. Now, this person, Patty, says the church my parents went to had a young at heart. I guess I'm assuming that's like a young at heart club or something, a Baptist church. My aunt, dad's sister, was a member of Young at Heart and would go on bus tours with them. My dad passed away in 2009. Mom passed away in 2012. Now I'm 70 and my husband is 72. We stay pretty busy. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you're staying pretty busy inside the church or outside the church, but there are senior groups that do things in church, and that's not a I mean, it's true, but you got to get involved, right? Um, and I think church is a good place for a lot of older people. However, there are some people that are very old who get overlooked and they get forgotten. So, Jesus in the house. Let's do the beat man. Jesus in the house. Anyway, sizing up, yes. And when they realized that I had no job and just plain insomnia at the time, they wanted me to work at the church, cleaning and helping with cooking. I found them very uncaring about my state, but just worried that I was not contributing as they wished. I will never go to such a place again. I'd rather stay home and pray alone. Okay, that's a sad experience. I think that's totally a sad experience. Um, Now, W.J. Flores says church services are typically designed so that you have very little contact with other people in the congregation. This is true. And sit beside each other, and after the sermon, you go home afterwards, leading to no relationship development whatsoever. This is true unless you are intentional. And even if you are intentional, sometimes you still can't make friends. It says here, I've had a little better luck finding friends in Bible classes where there's time for open discussion because at least there you can express your thoughts and people know you're there in order to make friends with you. And this is true. And I will also tell you, wait, hold on, I'm gonna get bigger here. I will also tell you that this is the reason why Bible studies like Community Bible Study Fellowship, and Precept Ministries Bible studies, they all exist because they're a parachurch ministry where people who want to study the Bible, if they don't have a Bible study in their actual church, they'll sign up and go to these. I'm in two of them right now. I go to a Bible study fellowship and a community Bible study, and I've met so many cool women in these things. It's been great. All right. My dog is getting a little unsettled, so I'm only going to address a couple more of these comments because I don't want this to be too long. Let's see here. And if I don't read your comment, it's not because I don't care. It's just that there's a lot of comments here. But I want to address, somebody made a comment. Okay, this Maria made this comment, and I thought, well, this is interesting. She wrote, wow, the fake quote Christians will not like your video. What you say is 100 facts. Okay. Anyway, I just have to say here, my video here isn't about pulling out and calling people fake. Here's what I know. I think most people who go to church are who they are. I think people put on a face, usually on Sunday. They go, everything's great, you know. Um, but I don't think people intentionally, genuinely try to be fake or hide stuff. Um, I think that many people go to church because they feel like they have to, because they don't understand they are the church, right? If you are a Christian, you're Holy Spirit filled, you have the Holy Spirit residing within you, you're born again, you are part of the body of Christ. So wherever you go, you are the church. You're representing the church. You're part of the church. It's like, this is probably a bad comparison, but I'll say it anyway. Many years ago, because I know somebody will have something to say. So to you who are tempted to say something based on what I'm about to say, don't say it. Just saying. Okay. Anyway, so many years ago, I worked at Focus on the Family. And I remember Dr. Dobson telling us when we worked there, he said, you know what? When you say you work at Focus on the Family, people are going to associate you with me. It's kind of like here in Tennessee, if you worked at Ramsey's place, Dave Ramsey's company, I don't know what it's called, Ramsey Institute or something like that. I don't know. But if you work for Dave Ramsey and people know you work for Dave Ramsey, you're representing Dave Ramsey because you're working for them. So it's the same thing when I work for Dr. Dobson. If I worked at, where do you work? Focus on the Family. Oh my gosh, you work with Dr. Dobson. And I'm like, yes, I do. But in our training, Dr. Dobson made it very clear that we needed to be, honest, upright, ethical people because we're representing him. We're ambassadors, if you will, for him because we worked at the company. We are ambassadors for Christ. right? My friend Denise, she always has this thing that, she's an ambassador for Christ because we are. That's what the Bible teaches. So going to church is really a misnomer if you really think about it. Because in the New Testament believers actually went to a temple. They were Jewish. They went to a temple. And then when Jesus rose from the dead, the house church movement was based, the church people met in houses, right? And if you look at church history, well, we won't go into that. But bottom line is we have what we kind of we call today the church. Bottom line is you are the church. So wherever you are an ambassador for Christ, and people will see it and they'll see you and they'll judge you, especially if they know you're a believer, they'll judge you. I've been judged good. I've been judged good, and I've also been judged poorly. Now, somebody made a comment, and I don't know the name. I'm sorry, I forgot it. But I made a comment in one of my other videos about the relationship between a coach and a client being hierarchical, that the coach is higher than the client, okay? And that person basically was trying to tell me that because I have that mindset, I am setting myself up for failure. Again, another thing that had nothing to do really with the friendship video, except for the fact that I was trying to draw an illustration, which is when you're coaching somebody or when you're a therapist and you're helping somebody, there is a power differentiation, right? You're paying people for a service. So you hope, or at least I would hope that the person I paid for therapy, that they know a little bit more than I do, and that they would treat me with respect, they would do no harm, and that I would get my money's worth, right? Not to be a friend, but to learn. That's what the coaching relationship and a therapeutic relationship, it's how it's set up. That's, you go to the doctor. Why are you going to a doctor? Because the doctor knows stuff you don't know. It's not that hard, So it's just interesting to me that you can't even, I can't even say something like that without it becoming, an issue like, oh, well, to which I would go, just as a caveat, most therapists, I wouldn't recommend anybody go to a therapist these days. Have you been in Facebook therapy groups? I have, just saying. I would recommend a coach over a therapist any day these days because you have witches who are practicing therapy. You have people who they don't even deal with their own issues. I mean, it's a horrible thing, but that's another issue. Again, that came out of this video about friends. Um, Somebody did make a good comment, though. They asked me, they said, well, where do you go to make friends if you can't go to pickleball? And my answer to that is you find a place where there's other people doing something reciprocal. In my area, we have a senior center. I am old enough to go to it. Granted, if I do go, there's people 20 years older than me there because that's the mean age. But, these places are hard to find. They can be. And then somebody else made a comment about, well, in order to be a friend, you have to put yourself out there. Yeah, you do. To which I would go, duh. I mean, of course, But if you're like me, you're the one that reaches out, right? You're the one that reaches out to people. You're the one that writes cards. You're the one that kind of reaches out. You try to have a relationship, but most people are like, nope, 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 nope. I'm too busy. I don't have time. I'm not interested and all that. And then one last comment, because I don't want this to be too long. Another person said, when I go to church, the fellowship is great. I love it. I get to do so many activities and stuff at church. I have lots of friends at church. And again, it didn't really address what I said because going to church, you can have fellowship. I know the Baptist church I used to go to, they had a monthly Sunday afternoon fellowship in the fellowship hall where we all ate lunch together. People brought stuff. My eye itches now. And my dog wants to get off the chair. He's old people. Um, but anyway, it isn't an issue of fellowship. Yeah, I can go to church any day of the week and get fellowship. What I can't go, what I can't do is go meet people at church. And most people meet you outside the church. And that's evidenced by the fact that when you leave the church, people aren't interested in. And that is sad. It's very sad. And it's also very sad that people go to church year after year after year after year, and they will sit in the church and not make any friends. They'll go out of duty or because they really love God and they want to worship God in whatever environment they're in, but then they leave feeling sad and depressed because there's no friendships there. I've been in that position before. So there are a lot of things tied to this, and I just wanted to clarify because I know some people are like, wanting to jump on the bash the church bandwagon. As I discussed with my husband on Sunday, that's not what this is about. My husband and I love the church. I actually got to share how to study the Bible online today with a whole bunch of women who are way older than me, you know, and it's because I love the church. I would have taught them for 5 hours if they would have let me, you know. So I love the church, but I also work with a lot of people who've been very hurt in the church. And there's a lot of abuse in the church. Um, and it starts usually at the top of the church, the hierarchy in the top of the church. That's where it starts. Um, Here's the one last thing I want to say. There were a couple people who said, I've had really great relationships in my church I've been to for 20 years. And I responded to one of them and I said, I wonder what would happen if you left the church. And then the other thing I wonder is what position are they in the church? Like I've gone to a number of churches and my husband and I are always, I don't want to say we're targeted, but people always notice we have our gifts, right? Our gifts are teaching. It's clear when you talk to us, that's what we do. We both teach. And so then often we are asked, will you lead a Bible study? Sure. Now, here's been my experience. Many years ago, I went to a church and I really wanted to practice my gift of teaching because I just love to teach the Bible. It's really fun to me. It's easy for me. And there was an older lady who was leading the church Bible study. And I kept having younger people. At this time I was in my 30s, I think, coming to me and saying, will you lead a Bible study? And so I did. The church didn't sanction it though, but it turned out I had more people come to my study than the lady who was leading the old women's Bible study. Well, that didn't go over well with some people. I'm like, why? I'm just trying to teach people the Bible. That's all. Anyway, um, so I learned, and it didn't matter where I went in the church, so-called church, I would be asked to teach Bible study. But then I also learned that they would want me to, and then they pull it out from under me. And this actually happened at my last church. I went into this Baptist church that I'd been in for 10 years. I taught Awana, had no problem with the kids' ministries because nobody wants to teach the kids, which is to me is stupid. You need to teach kids. I love the kids. And I was told I was actually the favorite teacher in all of Awana, which I believe because I'm fun. But anyway, uh, for years though, I had the women's pastor, ministry leader, whatever you want to call her, come to me and say, will you lead the women's Bible study? Will you lead it? And I'm like, nope. Will you lead it? Nope. Will you lead it? Nope. Because I didn't feel released at that point to do it. Finally, after about 3 years and 3 or 4 different people coming to me, I finally told my husband, I'm going to say yes. I'll do it. Okay. I have enough people now, different people asking. We've been here for a while. I'll say yes. So I went ahead. I said, you know what? Sure, I'll do it. I am not kidding you. Within a month of me saying yes, the woman who was leading that study came to me one afternoon and she's like, oh, honey, I've been thinking and praying about it. And I decided that I'm just going to keep leading the women's Bible study. How do you feel about that? I'm like, that's it. That's it. I did nothing. And the irony is when we left this church, she was the only person that called us, but it wasn't because she really cares. It's just because that's her job, you know. So, uh, yeah, you see things. And it's not you, it's the structure. And it is hard to make friends. It's hard for single people to make friends. I am a barren woman who's been married for a long time. It's hard for me to make friends because I'm around a lot of women my age who are grandmothers and all they blab about is their grandchildren. And honestly, I get sick of hearing it. I don't always want to hear about your grandchild or your child or the person in your family that's barfing and sick. I just want to hear somebody talk about God's word. I mean, is it that hard to spend a couple hours talking about the Bible? You know? So and some of you want to, you want discipleship thingies. It's the same thing. It's like good luck. So, you know what? One of the churches I used to go to in California, I was attending a women's Bible study. And one night it was about 6 or 7 o'clock at night. This man comes banging on the door of the church. And it's just us women inside. And the leader hesitantly walked over and opened the door, crack. Yes, can I help you? And I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is gonna be good. And this guy says, can I come in? And she's like, yeah, sure. So this guy comes in, he goes, can I get a church bulletin? Can I get like something from your church that shows what your Bible studies are so I can look at it and consider coming to the Bible study? And she goes and she hands them the bulletin and he opens it right up. He looks at it. He goes, where's your men's Bible studies? Don't you have a Bible study for men? And they're like, no. That guy left and never came back. He wanted a Bible study, but the church didn't offer it. And so there is a lot of dissatisfaction with people who are disciples. They want friends who are going to become disciples. And you can't find that in the church. You can find a social club in most churches. You can find a care group in some churches. You can find Celebrate Recovery. But it doesn't mean you're going to make friends. It means you're doing a group activity. And unless you intentionally make the choice to befriend and talk to these people outside that environment. And then I will also tell you one last thing. I know I already said that, but just one last thing. My husband and I, when we attended this other church in California, we often would take people out to lunch after church service. And we did this for a long time. We would take groups of people out, mostly single people. Maybe there was married once in a while, but mostly single people. And you know what happened? The day that we stopped paying for everybody's lunch was the day that those relationships ended. And I remember, I remember it so, this was at least 20 years ago, but I remember it because I remember telling my husband, wow, we're going out to lunch and nobody's asking to pick up our lunch. Right. So it was like, okay. And so some of you have made comments like, well, I've decided to stop being codependent and blah, blah, and all this other stuff. Yeah. You know what? In some cases, if you're trying to buy a friend, good luck. Not that's not what we were trying to do, but it was just something we noticed. Like, okay, at the time we were doing really well. My husband was making a lot of money in computers. Now he doesn't, but there's that. So there's a lot of factors, is what I'm telling you. And I'm just wanting to clarify my whole video about that wasn't to bash the church, but it is to raise awareness about what's happening in the church and why you feel irritated and lonely and angry and mad and depressed when you leave because nobody's going to come after you. They don't care. It's not made for that. And that's sad because people need that. They need the community, you know? So, anyway, I hope that that clarifies a couple of points. My dog is still standing over there. He's blind. He doesn't jump off furniture. So, I'm going to end this here. And I hope that clarified stuff. And I hope you have a better day. And of course, leave your comments if you'd like. Love to hear them.